Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 8, No One. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Game of Thrones, so I have to give a spoiler warning for Game of Thrones up to Season 6, Episode 8. If you haven't seen up to this episode, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. This video will also contain light spoilers from the novels, as I'll talk about them briefly, but will not give away any heavy spoilers that would spoil specific things that have not occurred in the show yet. So, this episode was a mixed bag for me, as some scenes had me jumping out of my seat cheering, or on the edge of my seat with suspense, while others I found rather boring or just mere setup for future episodes. The big takeaway for me is that there were 3 fan theories that were disproven in this episode, or at least would now seem highly unlikely. One is a fairly new, while the other 2 have been around for quite some time. I never thought that any of these 3 theories would occur and have spoken out against them, so I feel kind of like I got some confirmation with this episode, which I'll get more into a bit later. So I'll start my review where we start the episode. That's with Arya in Braavos. As some has predicted, she has taken up with the actress Lady Crane and goes for her for help. And very luckily for Arya, it just so happens that it's an amazing coincidence that Lady Crane just so happens to have a lot of experience in healing stab wounds. The writers give an excuse. Lady Crane explains it's because she has stabbed her cheating boyfriends before and then had to heal them. So Arya and her, bond a bit, and Lady Crane suggests that she join their acting troupe as they're off to Pentos next, but Arya suggests that they'd never be safe if she stays with them. Arya then talks about wanting to go west of Westeros, where no one has gone before, and has no one knows what's there. And I found this extremely interesting, as this is the first time it was mentioned in the show, and makes me wonder why they introduced it now. What's more interesting is they had Arya say it. It reminded me of when she was talking to the Hound in season 4, where she said she always wanted to go to Braavos. Now where is she? Braavos. So it makes me wonder if this is the writers hinting at her ultimate storyline. Perhaps that's how she ends the series, sailing west across the Sunset Sea. Many theorize that Daenerys would actually go west of Westeros and circumvent the globe and come around the other side, but I personally think that's a bit of a ridiculous theory. However, this may feed the fires of that. However, I don't know, because to have Arya say it made me think it's more likely, if it's anyone, it's going to be Arya. Some may think this is ridiculous. The show is always historically clunky with setting things up, however, and I really don't think this was just an idle statement, and I do think it will come into play in some shape and form later on. So Lady Crane is pretty caring towards Arya. I know she saved her life, but it seems like there's more to it than that, as if she's always wanted a daughter or something like that. But at any rate, all that comes to naught when a young boy shows up to Lady Crane's place, and while Arya is sleeping, when Arya wakes up, she finds Lady Crane dead in the way standing there as the one who did it. Which begs the question, why did she bother to put on that disguise? It's not like Lady Crane knew who she was, or that it made any difference whatsoever, and it's not like she was worried about people seeing her true face, as she blatantly was chasing Arya with her true appearance in the public street in broad daylight. Anyway, we see the Waif hell-bent on destruction, and we get this incredibly awesome chase scene where Arya just jumps off of buildings and tumbles on the streets over baskets of fruit, and you can, Arya was in a lot of pain, you could tell, and it seems a bit fake that she'd be able to run and jump as much as she did after getting stabbed multiple times in the gut. But we all know Arya was wearing her armor that day, her plot armor, which is fine. I just come to accept that and enjoy this chase scene for the awesomeness that it was. Anyway, Arya leads the waif back into her little dark room where she has Needle by purposely leaving a trail of blood for the waif to follow, and the waif is kind of incompetent here to not realize that Arya was leading her into a trap. Where's Admiral Akbar when you need him? But I suppose her opinion of Arya is so low and her arrogance is so high, she didn't think there was anything Arya could do to stop her. But once Arya has her right where she wants her, she turns out the light, darkening the room, giving her the advantage as she lived blind for some time and had learned to fight blind where the waif didn't. However, I wouldn't call this a sure thing, as Arya was noticeably scared and she was really in pain. I think she just knew it was her best chance. And I'm not too upset that they just cut to black as soon as Arya put the light out and they skipped over the fight, because it was dark. There wouldn't have been anything to see anyways. Plus, I thought it was kind of cool the way that they left it ambiguous and had the waif's face just show up in the Hall of Faces, and with Arya pointing her sword at Jaqen. I thought that was a really effective way to reveal it, even though I knew that's what would happen. So, this is the first of the three fan theories disproven in this episode that I was referring to. This is the more recent theory, so recent I hadn't even had a chance to comment on it yet, and that's the Arya Fight Club theory. There were several different versions of this theory, but it all supposed that that wasn't really Arya who got stabbed because she was acting so carelessly. Some people suppose Arya and the waif were the same person, hence the Fight Club reference, or that it was really Jaqen Hagar who got stabbed and not Arya, and some other variations, but I was totally against all of them, as it was trying too hard to be too complicated and trying to excuse what is just plain and simply poor writing by portraying Arya for being so stupid for allowing herself to get stabbed. And I knew that's all it was, and thought that this would be really silly if they did go this route. Instead, we get to see Arya and the waif go at it, which was great. So, Jaqen Hagar finds some blood on the ground and follows it to the Hall of Faces, where he sees the waif's face already there, and Arya confronts him and how he sent her to kill her. And Jaqen is just like, yeah, but here you are, and there she is. And true to Jaqen's character, he just stood there as Arya pointed her sword at him and even walked up to it and told her now she is truly no one. But Arya proclaims that she isn't, that she is Arya Stark of Winterfell and she is going home. And that was a huge get up and cheer moment. I was out of my seat cheering when she said this. It was just so awesome in the moment many people were waiting for. Arya is going home. Now, there are several things I want to talk about with this scene. First of all is Jaqen's reaction to this. Many people, including myself, theorized that Jaqen sent the waif to kill her as a final test for Arya, and it seems in some manner that this was the case. I think Jaqen would have been fine with it either way, whatever the outcome, but was hoping for Arya to succeed, and in fact was pleased when she did. In fact, let me take this a step further, as when Arya says, "I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell and I'm going home," it almost looked like he was smiling, and it definitely looked like he was smiling once she turned around. So here's my theory on that. This was Jaqen's plan all along. Not to turn her into a faceless assassin, but to give her the skills that she needed to be an effective killer, but then send her on her way to sort her own business out. And to explain myself a bit, let me go back to the season 2 finale when Jaqen Hagar first gave her the coin and invited her to go to Braavos. It was when Arya was asking him how he managed to kill all those people so easily, and his response was, "If you would learn, you must come with me across the narrow sea to Braavos." And then he says, "The girl has many names on her list. Joffrey, Cersei, Tywin Lannister, Ilyn Payne, the Hound. Names to offer up to the Red God. She could offer them all, one by one." So that really implies that he wanted her to train her so she could kill all the people on her list. He mentioned nothing about becoming no one. And to be honest, I considered this a continuity area when Arya showed up, and all of a sudden Jaqen's being all strict on who she can and cannot kill, and saying she can only kill who she's told to. But now I'm thinking it wasn't a continuity error as much as a test, as she wanted her to discover on her own some things, like what's important to embrace who she is, how to show compassion and not to just kill any random person, and of course the confrontation with the waif was the ultimate test, as she had to use her skills to defeat a much more experienced foe. So again, the look on Jaqen's face after she said she's going home, it looked like this is exactly what he wanted to hear, which does lead me to believe this was his plan all along. The other conclusion I drew from this scene is that a lot of people have been complaining about Arya's Braavos storyline, calling it boring and pointless. I myself stated a few weeks ago, I hope they gave a significant reason to justify this storyline's existence. And so the question is now, did I overall think the storyline was necessary? And the answer is most definitely yes. Compare Arya to the way she was before she left to the way she is now. She learned a lot since then, not only how to be a good assassin and to get by on nothing, but also learned a bit more compassion, how to blend in and not be a psycho. I mean, before her training, she would just bluster around about how tough she is. Like, I'm gonna kick your ass, but unable to back it up. Whereas now she's a bit more bite and less bark. Although she may not be a faceless man, she's gained a lot of skills since then and is going to be a much better assassin and bigger threat when she returns to Westeros, not to mention much more able to be self-reliant and not so dependent on others to take care of her. So yeah, the storyline was totally necessary, and I can't wait to see where they take Arya from here. So now let's move over to Arya's old buddy, whom I think it's possible she might bump into later this season, Sandor Clegane, the Hound. So we see a couple of thugs that killed the villagers in the previous episode, joking about, being dicks to each other, when the Hound just walks up to them, and the two young boys just stand there dumbfounded as he charges at them with an axe, and he proceeds to chop his head off. Then he easily kills the other two and maims the last one, and then asks him where he can find that guy with the cloak. And we get a classic Sandor Clegane scene where the man simply replies, "Fuck you," and he's like, "Oh, so those are your last words? Fuck you? Come on, you can do better than that." And then he just says "cunt," to which Sandor replies, "You're shit at dying," and then kills him. Classic Sandor Clegane right there. So then Sandor comes across the other man he's looking for when he and sees him and two other men are about to be hanged by the Brotherhood without banners, led by Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr. They are about to hang them for the same reason Sandor wanted to kill them, for killing the villagers. So this answers my question about the Brotherhood without banners, as it seems they were acting out of character in the previous episode where they were running a protection racket and killing innocent villagers who just wanted to be left alone, whereas the Brotherhood has always been about protecting the little guy. However, this explains it here, where they discuss, those guys were just rogue agents who deserted the Brotherhood to serve their own purposes, which is why the actual Brotherhood wanted to kill them for doing so. So then Sandor bargains with Beric and Thoros as he claims the right to kill them, and explains it's because he was at the village and a friend of his was killed. So Beric lets him kill one of them, but Sandor talks him up to two. However, they won't let him butcher them. He has to just hang them. And it's funny how he said there was a time when he would have killed all 7 of them just so he could gut those 3. Thoros replied, "You're getting old, Clegane," but I don't think that's it, as much as he's changed about, after all of his time with Brother Ray. And I think Beric and Thoros can tell as they ask him to join the Brotherhood without banners to protect the little guy. And at first he's very hesitant, but then Beric talks about how it's not too late to help people, and since that touches on the same chord Brother Ray was hitting, I think he is convinced, and in fact will join the Brotherhood without banners. Of course, I have to mention the cool line when Sandor was eating and Thoros asked him if he was enjoying himself, to which he replies he prefers chicken, which is a very nice callback to the classic I'll eat every fucking chicken in this room moment from the season 4 premiere, which was just a classic Hound moment. So let me get to the second fan theory that I felt was disproven in this episode, and that is the thought that Lady Stoneheart would appear in the show. For those of you who haven't read the books, I won't go into any great detail on who Lady Stoneheart is, but suffice to say, she took over as the leader of the Brotherhood without banners in the books after Beric Dondarrion died, and they turned much darker. Many thought their behavior in the previous episode was an indication we'd get a Lady Stoneheart in the show, but I was very adamant that we would not be seeing her in the show at all, because I just think Lady Stoneheart appearance at this stage makes no sense for the storyline that the show is currently doing. And it turns out I was right, as we got an explanation on why those guys were acting the way they did, and it was because they were deserters and they were hanged by the actual Brotherhood because of it. Plus, since Beric Dondarrion is alive and well, it does mean there is no Lady Stoneheart, and I believe it will stay that way. Sure, one could try to make excuses for these indications, but let's be honest, mate, you're just grasping at straws. This episode is the death knell of the Lady Stoneheart appearance in the show. So let's move over to Meereen, where everything seems to be going swimmingly. They have a nice peace. The priestess are preaching to the people about Daenerys, and they all seem to love her and adore her, and everything's great. However, Varys is still not happy about Tyrion's alliance with the Red Priestesses, but Tyrion stands by it. Varys then departs on a boat, apparently going to Westeros to gather allies for Daenerys. However, the specifics of the plan are never mentioned, so we still have no idea where exactly he's going. But Tyrion does, as he says, "I hope you're right about this expedition." And Varys replies that they need allies and ships. So it makes me wonder if he's going to the Iron Islands, since they're the ones with all the ships, which would be funny since they're actually coming to them. But we'll just have to see. So then we get this scene with Tyrion feeling happy about the status of the city and getting Grey Worm and Missandei to drink with him. As usual, they refer, they just denied. They don't say, "Oh, we don't want to drink." And Grey Worm cites the rules as a reason, and Tyrion has a really good counter argument by reminding him that their former master made those rules in order to keep them from being human, which was a good point. And of course, the mention of them definitely would be enough to convince Grey Worm to defy their wishes. So they drink and tell jokes, and they don't get the joke that Tyrion tells because it's about families of Westeros. Then Missandei tells a joke that's not funny at all, and Tyrion humors her by laughing, but Grey Worm is just like, "That's the worst joke I've ever heard." And to be honest, I found that really funny. So overall, this is another okay scene to, see Tyrion's relationship with Grey Worm and Missandei progressing. However, I did feel a bit anxious during this scene, as I felt it went on for a tad bit too long, and I just wanted them to get on with it, but they do eventually when they're interrupted by the alarm sounding, and they investigate to discover a fleet of ships from the Wise Masters surrounding Meereen, ready to attack. So it seems the whole piece was a ruse to buy time for the Masters to gather their strength and take Meereen by force. However, we get another callback here, because the joke Tyrion was about to tell when the alarm sounded was he was saying, "I once walked into a brothel with a honeycomb and a jackass," and this is the exact same thing he said at the Eyrie in season 1 when he was meant to be confessing his crimes. But in that case, Lysa Arryn interrupted him by saying "silence," but Robin wanted to hear the rest of it. So I was wondering if we'd actually hear the rest of it here, but no, he's interrupted at the exact same moment. So this is in fact the show's own running joke, where Tyrion is never meant to finish the rest of the story, as he'll always get interrupted when he starts telling the story. So I thought that was pretty cool. Next we see the city is under attack as ships hurl fire at them, and Tyrion admits he was wrong about the peace, and Grey Worm is pissed and insists that their best chance to defend the city is to hold back at the pyramid and wait for them to attack and attack them. Personally, that seems like a bad plan to me, but thankfully we don't see it fail, because who is it that shows up? None other than Daenerys Stormborn Targaryen, and we see Drogon flying around in the background, so I think it's safe to assume that she rode him to get there. So in case anyone is wondering where the Dothraki are, I'd say Daenerys rode ahead of them on Drogon to get to Meereen first to assess the situation, and now that she has, she will likely find a way to defend the city. Unfortunately, the Dothraki aren't going to be much help against the ships, but they would be effective against any ground troops the Masters send in. The dragons, on the other hand, would be very effective against the ships, as they could just rain fire on them from above. Before season 6 started, the showrunners promised some dragon scenes more impressive than anything we got so far, and I do think that is what we'll get from them in the future, so I think it would qualify. So I think some epic dragon scenes are coming. Either way, I can't wait to see how Daenerys handles this situation. She didn't seem too pleased at the moment with her city under attack, but why would she be? So then we come to the Riverrun storyline, where Brienne shows up to meet with Jaime, and I'll be perfectly honest here, I did not like this storyline and found it incredibly boring and unnecessary. It's definitely what held this episode back for me. The story played out really similarly as it did in the books, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't like the storyline in the books either. I found it boring, and I think the show's version was even worse. Maybe I'm a victim of my own expectations, because I was expecting some great conflict between Brienne and Jaime, similar to what we got in the books, but instead it kind of just fizzled out. So Brienne and Podrick show up at the siege, and Brienne demands to speak to Jaime. Meanwhile, Pod is approached by Bronn, who messes around with him, but honestly, after seeing this episode, I wonder why the hell Bronn was even at this siege. It seems like his involvement is entirely pointless. It's just so he could crack the occasional joke. So that's all Bronn has become, comic relief. So anyway, Brienne talks to Jaime, and they try to come to an understanding, making it clear that they still care for each other, but must stay true to their own duties and loyalties, which could possibly come into conflict. And to be honest, I thought that there would come into conflict, and I'm a bit disappointed that it didn't. Anyway, Jaime lets Brienne go to Riverrun in an attempt to get the Blackfish to surrender the castle and head north to help Sansa instead. However, he is extremely stubborn and refuses, but I did like how Brienne eventually got him to trust her and read the letter by telling him Jaime sent her to protect Sansa, thus fulfilling his oath to Catelyn. And it was also great seeing Brienne tell Podrick to let Sansa know she failed, so obviously not feeling too good about herself. So Jaime then goes to see Edmure to reminisce with him about Catelyn, and when he says he doesn't care, he's just like, well, you have to listen anyway because you're my prisoner. So Jaime plays good cop, bad cop all by himself, as he promises Edmure that he'll be able to raise his son with his wife in Castle Rock if he helps him, but if he doesn't, he'll just catapult his son against the castle wall. So Edmure then goes to the castle and demands they let him in. Blackfish doesn't want him to, but the other Tullys overrule him because technically Edmure is still the Lord of Riverrun, and once he's in, he orders everyone there to surrender to the Lannisters and arrest the Blackfish. Brienne offers to take the Blackfish with her, but he refuses and opts to die instead. Now, one of the Lannister soldiers reported to Jaime that the Blackfish died, so we didn't see it on screen. And please don't say if we don't see a death on screen, then they're not dead, because that's nonsense. Just because someone doesn't die on screen doesn't mean they're still alive. Sorry. Stannis is dead. Get over it. Anyway, I suppose there's a chance that Blackfish is still alive, but I'll just take the Lannister soldiers at face value here, because it seems like, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, and sometimes when they say someone's dead, they're actually dead. At any rate, as I said, I found this storyline just as boring in the books, as I really don't care about the Lannisters and the phrase taking Riverrun back. I hope that this does have some significance to the future of the show, because right now it just seems kind of pointless to me, not to mention boring. So finally, we come to King's Landing, where Cersei gets a visit from Lancel and other Faith militant, where he demands that she comes with them to Baelor Sept to see the High Sparrow, who wishes to speak to her. Cersei refuses and says that if the High Sparrow wants to talk to me, he can get his ass over here. But then Lancel tells her it's not a request, to which she responds by saying, "Oh, but it is a request," and I say no. And already I'm absolutely loving this scene, as that's such an arrogant thing to say. "Oh, this isn't a request, it's an order." I love Cersei's response, where she's just like, "Oh, yes it is." Already it's like totally awesome. But it gets even better as we next see the scene we saw in the trailer, where Lancel tells Cersei to order her man to step aside or there will be violence, and she responds by saying, "I choose violence." I remember when I first saw this scene in the first trailer for season 6, I was so excited I jumped out of my chair screaming, and I have to say, seeing the scene in context, it totally lived up to my expectations. As one of the sparrows attacks the mountain, he simply lifts him up in the air and rips his fucking head off. And everything about this scene was so awesome. Seeing Lancel's reaction as the guy got his head ripped off actually made me laugh out loud. And it got even better when Cersei was just like, "Oh, please tell the High Sparrow that he's always welcome to visit," which was so awesome, as of course there's undertones that if he does visit, he'll be the one with getting his head ripped off, and of course proving that they can't just simply take her by force. I love this scene so much. When I was first watching this episode, I paused it after the scene was over so I could immediately watch the scene again before watching the rest of the episode. So I do think that the High Sparrow was, he was going to imprison her again, at least threaten to, as he rightfully identifies her as his last threat. So, that having failed, he tries a different tact. Cersei goes to the throne room to hear a royal announcement, and Kevin blocks her path and is a total dick to her, as he refuses to let her by the king's side, and when she complains that she wasn't informed about the announcement, he's a smartass about it. Meanwhile, we see Pycelle talking to Tommen, no doubt whispering poison in his ears, so Tommen makes his announcement that Cersei and Loras' trials are announced to be held at Baelor Sept, and in addition, he officially bans trial by combat from use throughout the entire Seven Kingdoms, which is quite a huge move. But it's obvious Tommen is being coerced, and this move comes directly from the High Sparrow, as he very wisely identifies that Cersei could very easily win her trial by combat with the Franken Mountain, so instead takes the option away from her and instead has the trial held where 7 Septons will judge her. In other words, it's fixed in his favor. Oh, the irony how Cersei fixed Tyrion's trial against him. In any event, this is a very smart move on his behalf, as it guarantees that she's found guilty, and even if she doesn't show up to the trial, once she's found guilty, he'd have the law on his side and would be able to send an exhaustible amount of men to get her and throw her in the cell forever. Then we see Qyburn tell Cersei that he investigated the rumors that she heard, and when she asks if they were just rumors or more, Qyburn replies, "Oh, there's more, much more." Now, despite what anyone in the comment section may say, we at this stage still don't know what he's referring to. Many are speculating he's referring to wildfire to go along with the theory that Cersei will burn King's Landing down to the ground. Personally, I don't think we're quite there yet. However, she could burn Baelor Steppe to the ground, so I'm still open to this. However, I do think it's a bit too early for that. And in addition, Cersei already is aware of the wildfire. We know from season 2 that she originally was the one controlling the wildfire before Tyrion took over, so she already knows it's there. So I personally think these rumors refer to something else. It could also involve her burning King's Landing down. I don't know, but I just think there's something we don't know that's going on here. As I said, it's a huge testament that the show has actually got me rooting for Cersei and wanting her to succeed. As in the first few seasons, I absolutely despised her and I wanted her to fail big time. And I actually get a kick out of her smugness, whereas before it annoyed the hell out of me. Either way, I really hope that she breaks the High Sparrow's hold over the throne, but I suppose I'll just have to wait and see. So let me end with getting to the third fan theory that this episode disproved, in my opinion, and that is Clegane Bowl. If you're unfamiliar with this theory, it's a theory that the Faith would choose Sandor Clegane as its champion to take on the mountain at Cersei's trial by combat, meaning the two Clegane brothers would fight each other in epic battle to determine Cersei's fate. And I was always against this theory. I made a video 2 years ago talking about how this theory would not happen, as it was just way too much fan service and doesn't really seem like the type of dynamic storytelling Game of Thrones is known for. Not to mention the injured Sandor Clegane would get his ass kicked by the Franken Mountain. And with this revelation that the Hound was still alive in last week's episode, everyone seemed to jump on the hype train of Clegane Bowl, while to me it was just confirmed even more that it was not happening, as the Hound obviously has his own agenda that has nothing to do with being a champion for the High Sparrow. And so now, in this scene, King Tommen has officially called off Clegane Bowl, because there will be no trial by combat for Cersei's trial of any kind whatsoever, Clegane or otherwise. Not to mention, the Hound has now joined the Brotherhood without banners, not the Faith Militant. So now it is official Clegane Bowl, unconfirmed. Get de-hyped. Now, I've always said that Sandor and Gregor Clegane could meet in battle at some time later in the future, and I still think that is possible, but I always knew that it would not be at Cersei's trial by combat. So, judging by the trailer for next week's episode and how much the story that there's left to tell in the North, it seems highly likely that next week's episode will take place entirely in the North at the battle for Winterfell. So we'll have to just wait until the season finale to get resolutions to all these storylines that hang in the balance in this episode, such as King's Landing, Meereen, and Arya's storyline. And it's been announced that the finale will be 69 minutes long, making it the longest episode to date. So I'm expecting a truly epic episode similar to the season 4 finale, rather than just a normal wrap-up episode at the end of the season. So I am getting hyped for that. So my rating for No One out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. There were moments like Cersei's I choose violence scene and Arya saying, "Screw you guys, I'm a-going home," that had me jumping out of my chair, cheering, and scenes that I love, such as Arya chase scene and seeing the Hound bargain for kills with the Brotherhood without banners. But, the Riverrun storyline disappointed me and bored me to tears, while the rest of the episode was mostly just set up. So that's it for my review of No One. Be sure to check out my live discussion with Abkin Tomko about this episode, which will be on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific West Coast time in the US, which is 7 p.m. East Coast time in the US, which will be 11 a.m. on Wednesday morning for me here in New Zealand. Or check it out in the archives after it airs. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Also be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover Season 6 of Game of Thrones, as well as many more videos on other shows like Star Trek, Orphan Black, and more. And be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.